The beginning of autumn always has a palpable back-to-school feeling. It's a time for pristine stationery and new penny loafers worn with socks, but also a moment to look in earnest at plans, ambitions and projects. As leaves in the park fall and the countryside turns yellow and russet red, everything we've set aside in the haze of summer hoves into view with the crisp, cool breeze. After months of shade-seeking days on the beach and picnic lunches, it's time to turn to our interior worlds, to preserve and pickle produce, but also step inside galleries, museums and theatres for inspiration. So this episode of Confect Corner reflects on autumn's abundance in ideas, inspiration and nature. We'll visit a vineyard in Wales and find out about the trials and joys of creating vintages in the UK with Susan and James Kinsey-Jones. We'll talk about horology, architecture, design and art with Richard Mille's Creation and Development Director. And we'll find out about how accessories brand Neous is inspired by artists like Mark Rothko and designers like Charles and Ray Eames. It's a hearty mix of thoughts, people and tips from Confect's editorial team. This is Confect Corner and I'm your host, Sophie Grove.
We kind of knew because of our location and altitude that the wines that we make aren't going to be traditional or what people might expect, and so we kind of wanted that message across everything that we do.
We are a team. We work as a team. The fact that we are many different brains together help us to create something kind of complete.
There's definitely a movement of people buying product instead of buying brand and falling in love with the manufacture, the craftsmanship, the physicality of the actual product instead of the perception of what the product can bring to your life.
Welcome to Confect Corner. I'm your host, Sophie Grove, here in London, and I'm delighted to say that I'm joined in the studio by Gillian Tobias and also by our style director, Marcella Palak in Zurich. Hello to you both.
Hi, Sophie. Hi, Marcella.
Hello, Sophie and Gillian.
As listeners will know, we like to start the show with a little show and tell. Gillian, let's begin with you this month. What do you have for us?
Well, I think I'm going to talk to you about the alchemy of glass in Mallorca. As you know, I'm obsessed with glass, but my heritage is Czech, so I tend to know more about Czech glass. I've done a lot of filming in Venice, but I now have a new soft spot for Mallorquin glass. They have an old tradition right back way for the Phoenicians to BC, but because of their location, they're very much on the trade routes, and just in the 16th, 17th century, when opulence and richesse was very much central to the region, they kind of secretly borrowed the traditions from Venice and made it their own. Fast forward, they do have incredible expertise. They have great glassmaking artisans. And what you do is you really feel a sense of place in the glass there. Not just in the obvious blues and turquoise of the Mediterranean, which are very prevalent, but there's a rusticness, there's a clarity, and I think that's what I love about artisanal skills, where there's the technique, but also it's the soul of a place. And the glass there, it's obviously very ornamentational, but it's every day as well. You can use it for your wine and your champagne and your cava and your plates. Two particular glassmakers. The glassmaking is outside of Palma, so it doesn't burn down the city. But they have shops and you can find their pieces. A very old heritage one from the 1700s, Guardiola, which is very much that kind of rustic take on glass traditions and deep colours. Yes, the blues and greens, but also deep reds and burnt oranges. And then La Fiora I'm quite partial to. That's based in Valdemosa, and it takes a much more contemporary spin on the glassmaking traditions there. Everything is 100% recycled. So they recycle the glass, and they work with a whole community of artisans. So, they almost have new collections. A wonderful contemporary aesthetic, but still that soul of the island. And the beauty of it is even if you're not there, you can go. They both have amazing online shops, and so you can go and have a look at the artisanship. And
I collect blue glass.
Oh, you'd be in heaven then.
Some Murano glass, but some just beautiful finished glass. But I haven't discovered that. So thank you for the tip.
Come with me and I will steer you there.
I mean, I was so enchanted when I went to Parma because, you can feel the heritage of luxury goods going back so far. It's ancient. I went to a button shop, I told you, that was 500 years old. And, these carved pieces. So I think there is so much richness, as we know from reading Monocle and Confect. But those two are really on my bucket list now, Gillian. But Marcella, tell us what you've been doing.
Well, I thought I know even all small and smallest museums in Paris. But what I love about the city is that there is always something to discover. The 14e, the Montparnasse neighborhood, will be from now on more on my program and schedule during Fashion Week as well. When I was there lately, the chic 60s-style fish restaurant Le Duc was closed. It's also a recommendation for September and October. But what I found is the close-by Institut Giacometti. It's housed in the former studio of interior designer Paul Follow and is a pure Art Deco gem. From outside and inside. Incredible. There you can dive into the impressive world and work of Swiss sculptor Alberto Giacometti. And the reconstruction of his lifelong small atelier shown in the very first room is so touching. Even his glasses and some newspapers from the time are shown there. It's really incredible and worth to go.
I always love it when you can see the space and they recreate it. It sometimes doesn't feel artificial. You just get a timeless sense of when they were working there. How long has this been open for? Has it been open for a while?
Yeah, I think this exists since quite a while, but I think it's really the location because you hardly get there to the 14e, and it's the metro station Raspail, so it takes a while. But when you're walking around, you even found more former ateliers there. And the Café Le Dôme, it was like a get-together bar during the 20s, 30s, 40s. It's actually a very artist-active neighborhood from, let's say, 100 years ago. So you can discover so many corners and former studios. It's incredible.
I actually had a friend when I lived in Paris that lived right opposite the Raspail station.
Really? Wow.
And I'd always go up there and she had these lovely parties. She was a film director. And I nipped in once the Giacometti studio. It's really beautiful. Yeah. But I agree with you. That whole area has these former ateliers, and they have that kind of semi-industrial feel to them because of the light, the windows that they sort of had so that people could see their work more clearly, but they were taken over by artists. I just love wandering around those neighbourhoods. Yeah. And I never went to the Duke because it always seems to be closed. But it's a really cult spot, isn't it?
Yeah. And Sophie, what have you come across this month?
Well, I have just come back literally this morning from Hertfordshire, where I've been staying with some friends, but they live right next to one of the garden cities that was built by Ebenezer Howard, and they live a very sort of a verdant life. But I was helping them, they have an allotment, and I was helping them harvest this incredible, bountiful harvest. But it's next to one of the chalk streams, which is a really amazing sort of rare and beautiful, clear little stream. It's almost Swiss style in terms of being these are beautiful chalk streams that we have in Britain. So you can paddle in this little stream, and then, we were just picking amazing vegetables and courgettes and apple trees, just absolutely weighing down with amazing fruit and pears and blackberries. I mean, it was so abundant. It really shifted my perception of food because I haven't really seen allotments in such wonderful rude health before. And these gorgeous little huts that everyone has that have these little kettles boiling and beautiful light. We saw a kingfisher out there. I was so enchanted, Gillian.
So did you go back and just literally spread out your bounty and then start cooking spontaneously depending on the produce you picked that day?
We did, and we had to cook intensively because there was so much. We were roasting figs, and we were doing tomato soup, and we were doing courgettes, fritters, and then when we were at the allotment, we had all these amazing little meals that were rustled up on a stove. It really reminded me of the power, of just that sense of being close to your food, the source. It felt incredibly reviving and interesting.
Well,
to be
nourishing spiritually.
I did, and then I think just the idea of having a little plot that is just away from where you sort of live, that is completely rustic. It's such a wonderful feeling. You feel like a little sort of Mr. McGregor kind of moment. And it reminds me of the garden colonies in Berlin. You know, there are 800 of these amazing little spaces, and we've written about them in Monocle, where people just rent a plot and then just go have a lovely little cabin and just sit and potter. And the same as, you know, the Scandinavian holiday kind of model, you know, on the archipelagos, where you sort of go up and it's just pared back. So I was really happy to see that there's an English version, but also just very surprised to see the abundance of the produce and just the kind of ingenuity of all these people growing stuff.
That's also because we're getting more of a Mediterranean climate here.
Yeah, there was some seriously wonderful kind of like squash and aubergines and all of these different things. And, you know, we've just put the issue of Confect to bed. You know, we sent it to press, as it were, for autumn. So I was in a very autumnal mood. I was feeling very bountiful, and my perceptions of everything was really honed. There's a beautiful essay in the magazine by a writer called Rollo Skinner, who's also a stylist, and he's writing about apples and the history of apples and the Silk Road and apples coming from Tajikistan originally. And I think when you start thinking about the history and provenance of all of the things we're eating, it's very interesting and just good for your soul. So that's my takeaway.
Marvellous.
Whinyard Rocks sits on the edge of the Radnor Forest in East Wales, a unique location for a natural winemaking venture. Susan and James Kinsey-Jones took a gamble and planted a vineyard in a region of Wales better known for sheep farming, starting not only a business, but a new way of life.
Confect's Emily Wade headed out to the Welsh Hills to meet the couple and chat about all things natural wine and the highs and lows of owning a vineyard in the UK.
The leaves are heavy with raindrops from a spring shower, and the distinctive earthy smell of petrichor floods the air as I arrive at Whinyard Rocks on the edge of Radnor Forest in East Wales. The sun is peeking through the clouds, illuminating the emerald hillsides that this part of the world is known for. Susan Kinsey-Jones, who co-founded the vineyard with her husband James, comes to greet me. James joins us once he's fixed a vital piece of farm machinery. We nestle in one of the farm barns to shelter from the wind rushing across the fields.
I think we got to a point in our careers where we weren't that into them, let's say, and I'd always kind of had an inkling about coming back here, but not to be a sheep farmer. And at the time, I think whenever we went on holiday, it was to somewhere where there was a wine region or vineyards, and we got sort of this holiday lets as part of what my parents had set up here like before. So we thought maybe we could do a vineyard on the farm and sort of integrate the holiday business in it. So that was sort of like an idea back in probably 2015, 2016. That's I guess that was the sort of genesis of it. It was just sort of decided to make a change and move back this way. So.
Yeah, I think we wanted to do something that we'd both have an interest in. I mean, obviously we like travel and food and drink, and then kind of meeting interesting people that was quite inspiring and seeing how they're making like niche food products and agriculture and sustainability. And then when you kind of suggested it kind of came out of the blue, but then it's just like, yeah, why not, as in we'll try a small patch. Yeah, exactly, why not?
If Wales isn't renowned worldwide as a heritage winemaking region, it's because there are peculiar challenges to growing vines here. The wet weather and the chilly climate. Then there were financial limitations. Susan and James were cautious with their initial investment, planting just 800 vines in 2017 in case the experiment wasn't viable. They also took it upon themselves to muck in with the planting, to save on hiring extra help. It's always fascinating to learn about the beginnings of a business, especially a venture as intricate as winemaking. Susan tells us a little bit about her work in the sustainable food industry.
They were trying to do like e-commerce in a way that connected producers with consumers directly, being transparent in the food chain, and just have a personal passion for great food and sourcing and producers and a real respect for people that make great food. So I loved working there and learned loads because it was a startup and there was 10 people when I started. So it basically meant you kind of had to do, everything needed to be done yesterday. You learnt loads of stuff across a whole business very quickly. So I had no idea that would actually be quite a good grounding for trying to set up our own drinks business. So I developed our website and are really keen on e-commerce being a really powerful tool for sending your products to people beyond your locality and sharing your story. So we basically sell direct to consumers on our website and also at the farm gates as well. And we run a few local bottle shops and restaurants. And together, James and I worked on the branding of our labels and how we tell our story. And we kind of knew because of our location and altitude that the wines that we make aren't going to be traditional or what people might expect. And so we kind of wanted that message across everything that we do. We don't have a viticulture background. Yeah. We're not like a grand estate with, 40,000 vines that we planted in 1 year. It's all quite experimental and we didn't quite know how it would work when we began. So we kind of feel like we're not very serious about being serious. We're serious about the wine, but we kind of want to make it accessible.
And I think it's funny because there's so many people that are quite shocked to know that wine is even made in Wales.
Yeah.
I think they certain people within, it's quite a small community anyway, the Welsh wine community, but they want to make it the Welsh thing is to be the natural wines. But obviously everyone wants to do their own thing, so it's
absolutely.
You can't say it's this or it's that. So like Susan said, I think what's important for us is, I don't know, we're kind of not brave, but we don't mind having colourful labels, you sort of have the quality of the wine and all the rest of it, but it doesn't have to have a picture of like you say, a Grand Chateau on the front. It doesn't have to have italicized writing. It's you just some of our labels are just a graphic with no words. And I sent it to trading standards. They have to sometimes observe, just check you've got the right information on the back, and they were like, I don't understand, there's no writing on this. It was yep. That's it, that's the front label.
How do you actually get past that? Because I've definitely seen wines before with one word on the front and they've got nothing else.
There's a specific amount of information you have to have on the bottle, so you can typically put it on the back. So we just make sure that information's there, and the front is kind of a bit of
a canvas.
Really. Exactly. It's a playground for sort of being, for us, it's having a bit of fun and trying to, not just for the sake of it, reflect, not stand out for the sake of it, just be shocking, but I guess reflect us, who we are and what we're trying to do a little bit.
In the background, the bleating of sheep is just about audible over the gusts of wind. All grapes grown at Whinyard Rocks are low intervention, meaning that no pesticides or artificial fertilisers are used and no sulphates are added to the wines later. Susan talks about the styles of wine they have on the farm and how many vines they are currently growing.
So we've got 4 styles of wine coming from 800 vines that we planted in 2017, and now we've got 5,600 vines and 9 different varieties of grape. And we kind of planted lots of different varieties to kind of give us diversity in what we could produce and also some sort of resilience in the grape growing, so that it can, depending on the weather and the season, different varieties can have different outcomes, I guess. Yeah. We probably make quite a lot of different wines for the size of our production at the moment, but it seems to be going quite well. We make a traditional method sparkling.
I was thinking about the reds and how you would go about that, especially in this particular area with the soil and the climate that you have.
So in terms of the vineyard, the soils are great. They've got our soils are really good. Our agronomist came and he sniffed our soil and he's like, "Oh, that's good stuff." Did he? So he got on this now. So our soil's all right. So which is good. You can go into technical detail, but it's kind of a silty loam soil, which will mean nothing unless you're into soil, but it means it's quite free draining. So that's good. So that's a big tick there for us. So we're trying to be a little bit smart in what we plant. So that's fine. And then we're actually we do say because we're out on the east of Wales and there's a lot of mountains between us and the weather, we still get lots of rain, don't get me wrong.
In 2020, the couple renovated a quaint cottage that has been in James's family since 1913. Located down a private lane beside their first vineyard, Highbrick Cottage offers a trademark holiday experience tucked away in rural Wales. A couple of wooden cabins overlooking the vineyard are next on their list of ways to expand. As we meandered back through the vines and finished at the farm barn, I asked Susan and James what the future holds for Whinyard Rocks.
I feel like English Welsh wine's just kind of blown up quite recently. Not that long ago, 10 years or so, probably being very unless you made a traditional method wine and unless you were based in the southeast, you'd pretty much be laughed out the door. You probably wouldn't take them very seriously. I do think it's really shifted in that short space of time for trade and journalists being more really interested in all the diversity of what's being made across the country now, which is great for someone like us, because we were never gonna have Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, Pinot Meunier grapes to make a classic traditional methods. That was just never going to happen for us.
I think the expansion for us is probably going to be more focused around getting people here, and because we've got holiday let. Well, there's another holiday let on the farm, and we've got planning in to put cabins in the vineyard as well. So we really want to get people here. It is beautiful around here, the mountains, all the rest of it. So once we hit a certain level of, I think the vineyard's going to be the core of everything that we do, but we kind of wanted to bring in other elements of enterprises into it and and help it grow that way.
For Confect, on the edge of Radnor Forest, I'm Emily Wade.
A report there by Emily Wade at Whinyard Rocks. This is Confect Corner. Swiss watchmaking brands may often command large markets and extend into global operations, but many of them remain businesses that are profoundly connected to their founding families, with their timepieces assembled in sublime little towns in the countryside. Richard Mille is one of them.
Its history is relatively fresh. The brand was started in 2001 by Richard Mille and Dominique Guenat. But a second generation of their respective families, 2 daughters to be precise, are already taking care of fundamental aspects of the business. Cécile Guenat is Richard Mille's Creation and Development Director and has been tasked with expanding the already bold aesthetic that has always defined the brand. That means letting anything from architecture to art influence her designs and challenging what a watch can look like.
Confect's deputy editor, Chiara Rumella, sat down with Guenat to find out more about what inspires her, why looking to other creative disciplines is important in this process, and the symbolic value of wearing a standout timepiece on your wrist.
Designers often point to specific inspirations when they reveal a collection. Sometimes it's a peculiar moment in architectural history, some other times an artistic movement, a painting in particular, a fashion staple. For watch brand Richard Mille, all of the disciplines above come into play. When presenting her designs, Cécile Guenat has pointed to many references, from the glamour of Art Deco to the joy of 1970s disco, brutalist architecture, and even pastel-coloured candy. But often, the biggest design challenge lies in interpreting an overall mood, the spirit of a time, and the societal shifts it points to, as Guenat explains when I ask her how important artistic influences are in her creativity.
It's a big part of the design process, I think. We do much more inspiring. We try to inspire ourselves with many, on many sides. It can be architecture or design or art or other things. It's very rare, for example, that we do a benchmark or these kind of things. We much more prefer to discover what's in the air, what's the tendance It's not only that, it's also to understand what's interesting, what's fresh, and also what can work with our world. But also sometimes, we have an idea, and this idea comes from the techniques, from the technical side. Sometimes it's from an aesthetical side. It can come from different side. At the end, you always need to understand what your product will express or will tell what will be the concept or the story. I think it's really, really important to be aware of many sides of the creativity. Even the society changes in the society are very important, I think.
In this exercise of receptiveness to the aesthetic and cultural preferences of our times, it helps that the team feels free to experiment and push the boundaries, constrained only by the technical limitations of what engineering can achieve. Though it's a well-established brand, Richard Mille is a relative newcomer in the world of Swiss watches, and a pretty bold one at that. This means there are less constraints in terms of adherence to a history or tradition. There is a canon, and there is an archive of former designs to go back to, but the fil rouge linking many of these pieces together is their experimental nature.
We don't have a huge collection of that are made with 10 strong pieces, and that's all. We always do new products. We always have to be fresh and new and imagine new things. We are very lucky, me and my team, and I think the whole brand, because the brand is young, not too young. So we live a nice time now to imagine new way of creating to continue the story. We can really stretch the DNA. It's very wide, big. When I started the brand, I did the exercise to try to put some names, some words on the DNA and kind of understand what's the DNA of Richard Mille for the people who works in the technical office. We did that once, but like 8 years ago. Since then, I sometimes think that I should take more time to understand what's exactly the DNA of the brand.
Because of this, many Richard Mille designs feel very modern. And yet, just like for many brands, there is a desire for timelessness, though that can be achieved via physical means too, as Guenat explains when I ask her whether she's after timeliness or timelessness in her work.
Depends on the product, depends where it's placed, where is his place in the collection, and what we want to show with the piece. 6701, for example, it's much more a piece that we want to last kind of forever. Many of the pieces, actually all of our pieces are meant to be strong, and we test a lot of our pieces, so yes, they are very strong, and usually when you buy one of our pieces, it's meant to work forever. The only difference with the art is that it's a kind of an obligation to have a product that is strong enough to succeed.
Drawing from a variety of different influences is also inevitable when the creative impulse behind a piece doesn't necessarily come from a single individual, but a group with a mix of perspectives and ideas. Teamwork is something that Guenat values greatly in her process.
The thing is that we are a team. We work as a team, so it's a good combination, I'm like, okay, we should do that because there is that, and my colleague will be, no, should we do this like that? The fact that we are many different brains together help us to create something kind of complete. But sometimes I really want to design, I'm like, okay, this piece like the RM0704, we really wanted to create a watch for women who will be pure Richard Mille, basic, sporty watch. It was really the goal.
Because of the many people, ideas and necessities that all come together into a design, creating a new piece is a process that takes a long time. But no matter how long the team may have spent on experimenting with an idea, if something doesn't feel quite right, they will not compromise on the result. They'd rather start from a blank slate and move on. It's a tough choice to make, but one that means they can get behind the quality of the finished product. Guenat talks about how difficult but necessary this approach is.
I think you always need a little bit of time, not like 3 months to understand the thing, but you need to sleep on the idea of, okay, it's not working. Okay, maybe we speak about that in 1 week, and you look at the product, you take time to think about if it's a good or bad idea, and then you do your grief about the, you know what I mean? You're really like, okay, it's fine, it's not the end of the world. You need time to do, I think, the right decision. Especially when you have the feeling that it's your baby somehow. This design is your baby.
Still, when all the elements align, the result is something that everybody involved can be genuinely proud of, from the idea that first inspired it to the tests that ensure it can last for decades to come. For Confect, I am Chiara Rimella.
Cécile Guenat of Richard Mille in conversation with Confect's Chiara Rimella. Marcella, there's something very charming about the high luxury products that come out of these tiny little modest Swiss villages. Do you think that setting makes the product feel more authentic?
Well, if a setting of a product and mostly also a history linked to it, and maybe you can even go where it's made and understand better the reasons why it's made exactly there, then I think indeed it makes a product more authentic.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful to discover it in person. And so I can only recommend to go somewhere when you fall in love in a product. And on the other side, I think that's also why we love to discover nice products somewhere on holidays or just off the beaten track and bring them back home. Don't you think so?
Completely agree. And I've spent a lot of time in the Vallée du Jeu looking at these gorgeous little places and the views and the kind of that sublime nature as well, the kind of isolation. You can see the history of watchmaking and it makes you value it much more, I'd say.
Gillian, do you see watches more as a tool, status symbols, or as a little work of art? And what does a watch say about the person wearing it? What do you think?
For me, a little work of art, without a doubt. I mean, time well spent. It has to be an extension of us, an extension of who we are. It's not just functional. It is really about how we spend time, how we look forward to it, and our memories past. And to me, a watch is as special as a piece of jewellery. I think, the choices you make when you choose it, or if it's given as a gift, they're very, 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 very personal. We have our iPhones and our gadgets to tell us the time when we absolutely need it. But a watch is something that I think I have a different relationship with time with, and I love seeing other people's watches as well. What it says about them, I think it's really an appreciation of the artistry and the precision of it, but I think it's probably hard to judge someone from their watch, but I look at my watch and I think it's very me.
They're not wearing it today, but no, I completely agree. There's an identity that it certainly projects, but that's not really the point. It's the relationship you have with your own piece and your own sense of time, and it is actually quite a profound thing. Especially as I get older, I'm starting to value it more. I'm more attached to my watch. I don't know what that says about me. Minimalism can mean many things in fashion, but for accessories brand Neous, the term remains synonymous with the mid-century. Founder and creative director Vanessa Antonius finds endless inspiration in the works of artists like Rothko and modernist designers such as Eames. The result, sculptural footwear and handbags with fluid lines, have been a great success.
In April, 8 years since launching, the label marked a milestone, opening a concession in London Selfridges, co-curated with Monument Store, a design studio also known for its art-led philosophy.
Confect's fashion director Natalie Theodosi sat down with Antonius to hear more.
I actually studied art history and theory, so my education was in the arts and based around a lot of actually art philosophy, which is so niche. But interestingly, the things I learned come back to me so regularly when I'm designing. I think the things that stand out to me most is I'm very big on fluidity and having one line within every design where the eye can travel around the design, and it's very rarely broken. So there's a lack of use of like sharp lines and sharp angles in my work, although we're often referred to as architectural, but a lot of the architectural shapes are curved, and it really relates to mid-century furniture design for me, and then also the Bauhaus movement. And you see those shapes in mid-century furniture a lot, like the curvature of the woods and the kind of the curvature of the chairs, and also the aspect of the ergonomical nature of the furniture speaks to the practicality that I talk about in footwear as well.
And is there specific mid-century designers, artists that have always been on your mood board?
There's a few. Funnily enough, it's the ones that I'm obsessed with are 2D art designers. So it's like Kandinsky and Rothko. When I look at their pieces, I feel something in my chest, and it's an emotion and it's a sense of harmony that's created kind of internally. Every time I'm at MoMA and I go see the Rothkos, I'd like literally well up with tears in my eyes because of the kind of the emotional connection that you can get from colour and texture. So they're the two that I think I've always really connected with, and I studied extensively in university. So I'd say they've always been there. And then obviously Eames is, you'll see it on our Instagram and our mood boards so regularly. But again, the ergonomical nature of the chairs speaks so strongly to me.
And it's this kind of references that allow you to, there's no literal interpretation. It's more like you say, it can be a feeling and a more a philosophy around design. You're not replicating anything or doing anything that feels a little bit too literal, which is the case, I think, with many brands and designers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that for me, design or picking up the perfect product, whether that be a handbag, a pair of shoes, or a chair, or a chair arriving in your home that you're obsessed with, for me it's really an emotional thing. It's that kind of joy that those pieces give you, as opposed to like a direct translation of a visual element.
And usually within the fashion market, this level of detail or also storytelling is reserved to the very big established luxury houses. You've managed to do that while also maintaining a more approachable price point. Was that part of your focus and something that's important, equally important to you, I guess?
Yeah, 100%. It was so important to me that we did our very, very best to. I don't like the use of the word accessible because I think it means something so different to different people, but for lack of use of a better word, it was important to me that we remained as accessible as possible. And, this is a personal thing because working in fashion, in editorial, in magazines, there's never any budget. We did what we did, we do, and we did what we did because of passion and love. And I remember like never being able to afford anything that I wanted. And I really set out to create something that I would hope that people in the creative world who are not necessarily earning a great deal of money, who relate to the product, can connect with it.
And that's one part of it. I think there's also a psychology element as well sometimes, which changes over the years. Sometimes people are drawn towards the big logos, the 100-year-old brands with a certain amount of heritage. Other times it is more about design and a brand that you can access a little bit more easily, that feels more kind of aligned with you. What are modern customers after right now? We've seen trends change pre-COVID, post-COVID, and I'm curious what's going on now and what are you finding?
I mean, we're definitely finding that what the customer wants is changing much quicker than we first felt. We used to have this rule that every trend lasts 2 years. And I think now the rule is every trend lasts 6 months. And people are moving on so quickly. I think the really beautiful thing is I think there is, I wouldn't call it a trend, but I've referred to it often more as a movement. And there's definitely a movement of people buying product instead of buying brand, and falling in love with the manufacture, the craftsmanship, the physicality of the actual product, instead of the perception of what the product can bring to your life. And that's been really wonderful for us, because that's what I've always set out to believe. And I think I've always come to the brand with a very strong product focus. Having seen so much product, it was really important to me to always create something which didn't exist. And I always say to my team, when we start creating product which we've seen before, that's when we should stop. So we really strive to create things of distinction, and we're seeing that the customer loves the journey of discovery. So instead of like buying something that they know well or they've seen before, they're loving the process of discovery, of getting to know the brand. And they might be, the first interaction might be a product which is distinctive and stands out on the store shelves, and then they're delving more and emailing and asking questions about manufacture and design and more information about the brand. And then we see them coming back as a repeat purchase once they kind of become part of our universe.
And now you've really built out your collections. Like you said, there's handbags and there's more fully fledged footwear collections, like across flats, heels, different styles. And you've got your own space in Selfridges, which is so beautifully designed. So tell me a little bit about that, and also how did you approach physical retail for the first time? And
I guess in a similar way, it's like what we spoke about before, about that emotive feeling that you feel when you interact with a product. We've now been working on what it feels to walk into our spaces, and how that customer can be immersed in what it feels, what the feeling is in our space. So we worked very closely with Monument, who helped us curate the space and source all the vintage elements of furniture and the plinths and the different textures. So they very much worked with me to translate our key design principles of texture, fluidity, mid-century design, and bring it into a 360-degree space in Selfridges.
Amazing. And is there plans for more pop-ups, physical spaces, permanent ones down the line?
I hope so. I think it was very much our first step into that scale of retail. So we're very, very, very excited and very grateful that we had the opportunity to do that with the Selfridges team. So we don't have anything planned as of yet, but there's definitely more to come.
And we should speak about your latest collection as well. It's summer. I think that's the time that people are looking to treat themselves to something new as well. So tell us a little bit about what's kind of in stores now, and what you would recommend.
Sure. So we've just launched our High Summer collection, which is a buy now, wear now collection. And it's, for me, High Summer it has a kind of modern bohemian vibe about it. It's kind of, if you think of bohemian in the city, in the middle of London or in the middle of New York, and what that would look like. One of my favorite pieces is the Attic Woven, which is a hand-woven mule slide, like kind of a slipper, and just the craftsmanship in it and the weaving, and just how you can see the labor that's gone into the footwear makes my heart warm. And then that's definitely one of my favorites. And then I think the Taurus bag, which is a new shape for us, which has launched, is kind of this dumpling-shaped bag with pleating underneath the base, which creates the sense of volume and the bubbleness of the bag, with a top handle and also a shoulder strap. We've got that launching, and it's launched in the raffia. It's actually almost sold out in the raffia, but we are getting a new delivery. And then that also comes in a suede, which I think will be really beautiful as the summer cools down.
It's amazing when you speak about bohemian style, but within your very sleek modern world, because usually it's associated with something completely different, but the fact that you can merge the two is really interesting. Is that something that you have, do you when it's a summer collection, do you feel a bit more relaxed? You want to channel this more kind of bohemian mood?
Yeah, I mean, summer's a very special thing for me because I grew up in Australia. So summers for me are running around barefoot on the beach and like feeling that hot sun. And, you know, we were talking about traveling in Greece before, and I think I like to feel that sense of summer. And then when you translate that into a city like London or New York, like I said, it is very different. But I think for me, the concept of having to have a separate wardrobe, it doesn't feel right. It feels, I want the elements to be able to transcend cities and whether it's seaside or whether it's you know, a central city. So that's what I really set out to create with this collection.
That brings us to the end of this episode of Confect Corner. My thanks, as ever, to Marcella Palick in Zurich and Gillian DeByers for joining me here in London. Confect Corner is produced and edited by Carlotta Ribello and Steph Chungu, with production assistance from Desiree Banderley in Zurich. Remember to pick up your copy of the summer issue of Confect magazine and look out for our autumn issue, which will be on newsstands in September. Or head to confectmagazine.com. Until next time, from me, Sophie Grove, goodbye and thanks for listening.